This is our Shabbat worship service. And we'd like to thank you for tuning in this morning. If you've never heard us before, we use the Creator's given name, not a title. It's Yahuwah and His Son, Yahushua. There was no J in the Hebrew language. And the name's been translated down so many times, but we know names do not get translated. So when you hear us speak Yahushua, we're speaking of the Messiah. Okay, it doesn't change what He's done for us. We know that by His blood we have access to the Father. Okay. It's by His atoning blood that we are saved. So, we were sharing last week, okay, that number one for us, depending on who we're speaking to, okay, we use wisdom by the Ruach, by the Spirit, okay, and we speak to them where they're at, okay. We're going to go through, and we've been going through a lot of things. We learned a couple words last week, some things that we needed to change, okay, because they were calling out onto pagan deities, and we didn't know that before. So we began to change the words like glory and holy, okay. But you have to know who you're speaking to, okay? Because we have to first introduce certain people to the Messiah, Yahushua, okay? We just can't tell them you can't use that word, because if they just stop using the word and they don't know Him, okay, it ain't going to do them no good, right? Because they have no access, they're not saved. So the first thing they have to learn about is Yahushua, about His atoning blood, how by His blood that we have access, that we have been granted access back to the Father, that we become part of the family again. We tell them about how we're grafted in, how there's one, okay, there's not a bunch of different denominations, and there's not the Christians and the Jews and these people, okay. It says we're to become one. So first we have to tell them that we have to teach them about being grafted in through the blood of Yahushua. Okay, we have to have them understand that. Okay, and after they understand that, then we can go on to the other things that He's called us to do. Okay? And the other things that He's asked us to do. But we can't do the things without knowing Him. Okay? Because then we're in trouble. We're backwards. Okay? Then we're trying to do things by the works. Okay? And it says, first thing, by belief in Him, then we're grafted in, and then we show our belief by our works. So there's step 1, step 2, step 3 to the process. Okay? So today we're going to look at Corinthians Aleph, or 1 Corinthians chapter 11. And this has been bugging me for a while, and this is about the head covering. Okay, and as I started, it took me a couple weeks, because I started and I stopped, I got frustrated, I got mad, I couldn't figure it out, I couldn't understand it. So it was really bothering me. Okay? So we're just going to read, we're going to start in verse 1. What we're going to do is we're going to read these 15 verses, and then we're going to go back, and then we're going to come back to this. Okay? Because we got to understand some things to understand exactly what they were talking about right here at this time. Okay? It says, become imitators of me, as I also of Mashiach, or Messiah. I praise you, brothers, that you remember me in every way and keep the traditions as I have delivered them to you. Okay, now this is Shaul speaking. Okay, and he's talking about keep traditions. What traditions? Not traditions of men. Okay, he's talking about traditions of the Torah, the instructions. Okay, it says, as I've given them to you, keep the traditions according to the word as I'm delivering them to you. It says, and I want you to know that the head of every man is Messiah, or Mashiach. And the head of woman is the man. And the head of Mashiach is Yahuwah. Every man praying, or it says Nabah, which is prophesying. It's a better definition for prophesying. Having his head covered brings shame to his head. And every woman praying, or Nabah, with her head uncovered, brings shame to her head. For that is one and the same as if her head were shaved. For if a woman is not covered, let her be shorn. But if it is a shame for her to be shorn or shaved, let her be covered. For a man indeed should not cover his head, since he is the likeness and the esteem of Elohim, but woman is the esteem of man. For man is not from woman, For man is not from woman, but woman from man. For man also was not created for the woman, but the woman was created for the man. Okay. Now we're going to get into a couple things as we come back to this, but there's a lot of things, especially in our society, is so hard. Okay, because we have this image and this picture of a woman being independent, of a woman doing her own thing the way she wants to do. But according to the scripture here, what it's talking about, it says the woman was made for the man, okay, and not the man for the woman. Okay, and we'll go into the detail when we come back around. It says, however, the man is not independent of the woman, nor the woman independent of the man in the master. For as the woman was from the man, even so the man also is through the woman, but all are from Elohim. 13. Judge for yourselves whether it is proper for a woman to pray to Elohim with her head uncovered. Does nature itself teach you that a man indeed has long hair, it is a disrespect to him? And if a woman has long hair, it is her esteem, because the long hair has been given to her over against a veil. Okay, and I'm going to stop there. Okay, now, at first when I was reading this, I thought this was talking about covering the head. Okay, but actually what this whole section is talking about here is talking about hair. Okay, it's talking about hair. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back and we're going to look at some scriptures that talk about the covering of the head. Because when he was speaking to these people here, they already understood about the covering of the head. Okay? But when he's talking here, we'll go back and we'll look up some definitions and we'll look up some Greek words and the Hebrew words. And we'll understand here that this whole section is specifically talking about hair. Okay? So let's go back. We'll start in Yeshayahu or Isaiah. Chapter 3. And we're going to look at verse 16 through 24. And this is talking about women. These first two scriptures are going to be for on women, okay? And talking about the covering on their head. So Isaiah or Yeshayahu, chapter 3, verse 16. It says, and Yahuwah says, because of the daughters of Sion are haughty, and walk with outstretched necks and seductive eyes, walking and mincing as they go, making a jingling with their feet. Therefore Yahuwah shall smite them with the scab on the crown of the head of the daughters of Sion, and Yahuwah shall expose their nakedness. And in that day Yahuwah shall take away the finery of the anklets, the headbands and the crescents, and the pendants, the bracelets, and the veils. Okay, the headdresses and the leg ornaments and the sashes and the perfume flask and the almots, the rings and the nose jewels, the costly robes, the cloaks, the shawls and the purses, the mirrors, the fine linen, the turbans, the large veils. Okay, so here's what he's saying. He's saying because of their haughtiness, he's going to remove these things. Okay, and one of them things included in there was a veil. Okay, so during this time, they had some kind of covering on their head. Okay, their head was covered, so it was kind of, in a sense, a shame for them to be uncovered. Okay, for them not to be covered. Let's turn to the same book, chapter 47. Now this is going to, in the end, when we see all this, when we put it all together, this is also going to be a way to minister to other people, okay? Even other religions, in the way that they do things, and bring revelation and understanding, and share with them. You know why people started doing that? Do you know why? Do you know that you have to do it or not have to do it? And we'll be able to explain to them and show them through the scripture what it's talking about here. Okay, in Yeshayahu chapter 47, verse 1 through 5. It says, "Come down and sit in the dust, O maiden daughter of Babel. Sit on the ground without a throne, O daughter of the Chazdites. For no more do they call you tender and delicate. Take the millstones and grind flour, remove your veil, lift up your skirt, uncover the leg, and pass through the rivers." Okay, now how many people would think lifting up a skirt would be cool? That'd be a form of shame, right? So it's saying here, it's saying remove your veil and lift up your skirt. So these were shame. These were shameful things, okay? For the veil to be removed or the skirt to be lifted, okay? So we see in two instances that it was a shame for a woman's head to be uncovered, okay? Now let's look at a couple for the men, okay? Let's look at 2 Samuel. Samuel, Bet. He might need milk. Chapter 15, excuse me. Trying to get both of these books here. Okay. Samuel, Bet. 15. And we're going to read verse 30 through 32. And then, well, let's read them first, and then we're going to bounce back to verse 23. Okay, but let's start in verse 30 through 32. Now, what's happened here is this is when David's son Absalom was trying to take the kingdom from him. Okay? So it says, "And David went up to the ascent of the olives and wept as he went up." Okay, now he was weeping. "And he had his head covered and went barefoot. And all the people who were with him covered their heads and went up weeping as they went." Okay, now let's turn back to verse 23. 30 through 32. Okay, so it says David, okay, what was happening is someone was taking the kingdom, and so they were kind of in a sense running away from him. So they were all kind of mourning, they were grieving, so they covered their heads. Okay? Now let's look at verse 23 because it explains it. "And all the land was weeping with a loud voice, and all the people were passing over." Okay? "And the sovereign himself was passing over the Wadi Quidron, and all the people were passing over toward the way of the wilderness." Okay? So they were passing over, and it says they were weeping, they were grieving, and so they covered their heads. Okay? So, and that cover is actually the Hebrew word 2645. If you want to look that up, and it means to veil, to protect, or to cover. Okay? So we see here men covering their head. They covered their head when they were mourning, or they were weeping, or they were grieving. Okay? And the women always cover their head. Let's look at another one. Hadassah, which is, I just learned that the other day. I didn't know that, but the book they call Esther, it's actually named after Esther, the Eastern Star, and they said because she was so beautiful that they gave her that pagan name. So probably should have been kept Hadassah. Okay, we're going to go to chapter 6. So now what we're looking at is when the men covered their head, what did it mean? Okay? And we see with the women to have their head uncovered, it was a shame. And then for men to have it covered, it was a sign of mourning. Okay, so we're going to go to Hadassah. If you have another version, it would be Esther. Chapter 6. We'll start in verse 1. Now this is the story of Mordecai, okay, who, remember, he saved the sovereign from a plot against his life. And it says, chapter 6, verse 1, On that night the sleep of the sovereign fled, and he commanded to bring the book of records of the annals. And they were read before the sovereign. So it was like reading a newspaper. He couldn't sleep. So he's like, bring me something, read to me. What's been going on? Okay, what we review to me what's been happening in the kingdom. What's been written down? And it was found written that Mordecai had told of Bigthana and Teresh, two of the sovereign's eunuchs, the doorkeepers who had sought to lay hands on the sovereign Ahasuerus. And the sovereign said, What has been done in value or in greatness to Mordecai for this? And the sovereign's servants who attended him said, Naught has been done for him. And the sovereign said, Who is in the court? Now Haman had come into the outer court of the sovereign's palace to speak to the sovereign to hang Mordecai on a timber that he had prepared for him. Okay, so now this is the story. Here's this guy Haman. He's going to go to the king to ask him to hang Mordecai. And right before he goes, just that night, the king had read about Mordecai and how he had saved his life. And so he says, I got to do something for this guy Mordecai. Okay, so he sees Haman. And he tells him, hey, send that guy in here. Tell Haman to come here. Okay? Now Haman's pretty close to him. So Haman, he called him in. So Haman's like, all right, the king's probably going to give me something or do something for me. Right? Because he was trying to butter up the king. He's trying to suck up to him. Okay, verse 6. And when Haman came in, the sovereign asked him, What is to be done for the man whom the sovereign delights to value? Now Haman thought in his heart, Who would the sovereign delight to value more than me? So he said, he thought for sure he was talking about him. Oh, he wants to do something for me. So he starts thinking, he's like, man, let me think of something good, man. This is, you know what I mean? I know he didn't say my name, but I know he's talking about me. So let me think the best thing I can think, right? For me to get for myself. And Haman answered the sovereign, For the man whom the sovereign delights to value, let a royal robe be brought, which the sovereign has worn, and ride on a horse which the sovereign has ridden, one with a royal crest placed on his head. And let this robe and horse be given into the hand of the one of the sovereign's most noble princes. Let him dress the man whom the sovereign delights to value. It's wow. He said, let him dress him. He don't even dress himself. He just stands there and says, dress me. All right? So he's really buttering it up. He's really putting extra stuff on it. Okay? He says, let him dress him. The man whom the sovereign delights to value. And make him ride on horseback through the city square and proclaim to him, This it is done to the man whom the sovereign delights to value. And the sovereign said to Haman, Hurry, take the robe and the horse as you have spoken, and do so for Mordecai, the Yehudi, who sits on the sovereign's gate. And let no word fail from all that you have spoken. Okay, he put his foot in his mouth. Okay, so what did he say? Everything that you just said, go do it for that guy. Okay, now he was just going to go and ask him to hang him. So imagine how mad he will be. All right, imagine somebody maybe you can't stand. All right, or maybe you can forgive because it's what you're supposed to do, but you really imagine you thought it was going to be for you, but you had to go and do it for them. And you were the one that had to dress them. Okay, the person that maybe you don't like. Okay? Now, what he was doing here, it was two things. One, it was pretty bad because he was saying, take the king's robe. Right? So what was he saying? In his heart, he thought it was going to be him. He wanted people to think of him as the king. Right? Because I'm thinking, why would he want to have put on the king's robe? Why would he want to use the king stuff? Right? So he really wanted to esteem himself. So I wouldn't be surprised if this man was actually trying to plot to get the kingdom away from the king in some way. Yeah, he was coveting his kingdom. Okay? But he says, go and do that to Mordecai. And he says, don't let any word fail that you have spoken. Now what happens if he doesn't do everything he says? He's in trouble by the sovereign. Okay? And Haman took the robe and the horse and robed Mordecai and led him horseback through the city square. Wow, he had to lead him. He had to dress him. He had to go before him. Like this guy that he couldn't stand. Okay, that he hated. It says, so he's leading him through the city and proclaimed before him. And he had to speak it. Thus it is done to the man the sovereign delights to value. Wow, that was probably embarrassing. He was like probably so upset and angry, but he had to because he opened his mouth. Okay, so let's read verse 12. Then Mordecai went back to the sovereign's gate, but Haman hurried to his house, mourning with his head covered. Okay, so he went mourning, covered his head. Okay, because he was shamed. Okay, so as you can see, we're building this here of men only covered their head when they were mourning. Okay, and women were to have their head covered. Okay, now let's look at verse 7. This was interesting. Chapter 7 of chapter 7 in the same book. We're going to read verse 3. And both of these words are the same. They're H2645. The Hebrew word 2645. Okay, we're in chapter 7. We're going to read, start from verse 3. And the sovereigness Esther answered and said, if I have found favor in your eyes. Now here's Hadassah. She's coming to her husband and she's telling her husband, okay, about this plot of Haman to kill her people. Okay? And I'm going to use Hadassah instead of Esther there. It says, and the sovereigness Hadassah answered and said, if I have found favor in your eyes, O sovereign, and if it pleases the sovereign, let my life be given me at my petition, and my people's at my request. So she was going for the Yahudim. She was going before him and saying, if you hear my petition, save me and my people. Okay? It says, for we have been sold. My people and I have been cut off to be slain and to be destroyed. And if we had been sold as male and female slaves, I would have kept silent, although the adversary could not make up for the sovereign's loss. And sovereign Ahasuerus asked sovereigness Hadassah, who is he and where is he who has filled his heart to do so? And Hadassah said, the adversary and the enemy is this evil man, this evil Haman. Then Haman was afraid before the sovereign and the sovereigness. And the sovereign, arising in his wrath from the feast of wine, went into the garden, the palace garden. And Haman remained before sovereigness Hadassah, pleading for his life, for he saw that evil had been decided against him by the sovereign. And when the sovereign returned from the palace garden to the place of feast of wine, Haman was falling on the couch where Hadassah was. Then the sovereign says, also to ravish the sovereigness while I am in the house. So he was like basically pleading for his life, but he was laying on her. So when the king comes back, the sovereign comes back, he sees her and says, what are you trying to do? Take my wife too? Right? He said, what are you doing all over my wife? Okay? So it says, as the word left the sovereign's mouth, they covered Haman's face. And Yarbona, one of the eunuchs, said to the sovereign, also see the timber 50 amma high, which Haman made for Mordecai, who spoke good on behalf of the sovereign, is standing at the house of Haman. And the sovereign said, hang him on it. And they hanged Haman on the timber that he had prepared for Mordecai. And the sovereign's wrath abated. Okay? So it says in verse 8, the back end of verse 8, it says, as the word left the sovereign's mouth, they covered Haman's face. Now this is interesting because look, what do they do when they do a firing squad, right? Most of the time they cover their head. Okay? They put a hood over them. Okay, that's where they got it from. What do they do when they used to hang people? They used to cover their head. Okay, where did they get that from? Even the Old West days. That came from the scriptures. Okay, because right here, so a complete covering of the head is showing that they were going to kill him. Okay, so as we've seen, we went through, let's go through one more scripture. And we're going to look at Jeremiah, chapter 14. 14, verse 1 through 4. Okay. So here's what we established. Okay, we've established the fact that it was a shame for a woman to be uncovered. Okay. And the men was only covered for grieving or mourning. Okay, let's look at Yirmiyahu or Jeremiah chapter 14. We're going to read 1 through 4. It says, the word of Yahuwah that came to Yirmiyahu concerning the matter of droughts. Yehuda has mourned, and her gates have languished. They have mourned on the ground, and the cry of Yerushalayim has gone up. And their nobles have sent their little ones for water, and they went to the cisterns and found no water. They returned with their vessels empty. They were put to shame and blushed and covered their heads. Because the ground became cracked, for there has been no rain in the land. The plowmen were put to shame, they covered their heads. Okay, so here's another instance of men were shamed, so they would cover their heads because of the shamefulness that they didn't have no food, they didn't have no water. Okay, so now, is there any men in the scripture that were allowed to cover their heads? Let's look at Shemoth or Exodus chapter 28. Okay. We're going to read verse 1 through 4. It says, and you bring near Aaron your brother and his sons with him from among the children of Israel for serving as Kohen or priest to me. Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar, the sons of Aaron. And you shall make Kodesh garments for Aaron your brother, and for esteem and for comeliness. Okay, so this was specifically speaking to Aaron and his sons, all right, or the Levites. Verse 13 or verse 3. And you speak to all the wise of heart, whom I have filled with the spirit of wisdom, and they shall make the garments of Aaron to Kodesh him, for him to serve as Kohen to me. And these are the garments which they shall make: a breastplate, a shoulder garment, a robe, an embroidered long shirt, a turban, and a girdle. Okay, so I had a hard time because I was trying to find turban, and I was trying to find turban in the concordance, and I couldn't find it. And actually, in the King James version, it is called. If you want to look up that word for turban, it's called mitre, M-I-T-R-E. And I don't know where but everywhere you see turban, you look up the word. If you look up mitre, then you will find the Hebrew word for it. Okay. Now, when you look up that word mitre, it means to wrap violently. Okay, so that's like a turban. Okay, how people wrap their heads. Okay. Now, as we see here, he is speaking only to Aaron and his sons, for them to wrap their heads like that. Okay? Let's look at verse 37 of the same book. (37 and 38). Now remember, all the thing before, it's always been about shame and grief. Okay? But these set apart, the sons of Aaron, they were allowed to wear these because they were to minister as him as Kohen. Okay, now this is a powerful verse right here. 37, it says, and you shall put it on a blue cord, and it shall be on a turban. It is to be on the front of the turban. And it shall be on the forehead of Aaron, and Aaron shall bear the guilt of the Kodesh gifts. of the children of Israel, Kodesh in all their Kodesh gifts. It shall always be on this forehead for acceptance for them before Yahuwah. Okay. So actually it says they were to bear, it was a symbol of them bearing the guilt or the shame of the children of Israel. That was a purpose for these men wearing, besides it being their whole outfit. Okay. So as we see, men aren't to in the scriptures were to cover their heads. Okay. So let's go back to Corinthians. 1 Corinthians. Okay, and we're going to read chapter 11. What I'm thinking is they already understood the fact about covering for grief when he was writing to them. Okay? I think they understood that only the Kohen or the sons of Aaron were to cover their heads. Okay? So now, what about the women? Are the women supposed to have their head covered? Okay, well, let's read it again and find out. We have to look up some words. Okay, and we'll see what's going on here. Okay. So, it says, so as we learned, the only ones that were covered were the Levites or Aaron and his sons. Okay? So, that's something powerful for us to know, right? If we can show them, well, they were covered for this. And we can go and see a brother from the Middle East with his head wrapped, and if we can get in a conversation with him, we can explain to him and say, hey, look, do you know that you don't have to do that? I know it was in the scripture, but it was only for certain people that were allowed to, that had to do that. And if you are from Iran, you're forgetting the rest of your gear. You know what I mean? You have to wear everything. So you have to have your blue thing. You have to have your writing. You have to have your breastplate. You got to have your trousers underneath your long coat. You know what I mean? So there's a lot involved. It's not just you say, I want to do this one piece of it. Okay? So we can show them in the scriptures that, hey, you don't have to wear that. Okay? So let's go back to chapter 11, verse 1. And what we want to talk about is the covering in this instance, what is asking us to do. It says, become imitators of me as I also of Mashiach. We already read that. Corinthians Aleph, chapter 11, verse 2. I praise you, brothers, that you remember me in every way and keep the traditions as I have delivered them to you. And I want you to know that the head of every man is Mashiach, or Messiah, and the head of every woman is the man, and the head of Mashiach is Yahuwah. Every man praying or nabah, or prophesying, having his head covered, brings shame to his head. Every woman praying or nabah with her head uncovered brings shame to her head, for that is one and the same as if her head were shaved. For if a woman is not covered, let her be shorn, or shaved. Let her be covered. For if a man indeed should not cover his head, since he is in the likeness and the esteem of Elohim, but woman is the esteem of man. For man also was not created for the woman, but woman for the man. Because of this, the woman ought to have authority over her head because of the messengers. However, man is not independent of woman, nor woman independent of man in the master. Okay. Now here's the first scripture I want to look up. Okay. I want to look up the word covered, which I did. The one for verse number 4 of that. And that word covered, there's two words there. It's the Greek word 2596 and also the Greek word 2619. Okay? And when I looked it up in the Greek 2619, here's what it says. It says, having his head covered is literally having something down on the head, signifying that hair that hangs down is too long for a man. And consequently, hair that does not hang down on a woman is too short. Okay? So what it's talking about covered here, it's talking about hair. Okay? It's talking about a man and a woman's hair. Okay? And there's something in the long and the short of it. I'm not going to get into that. What's considered long, that's something you pray about and you decide for yourself. Okay, but here's what it's saying here. It's saying, as we read down here further, in verse 14, it says, does not nature itself teach you that if a man indeed has long hair, it is a disrespect to him? And if a woman has long hair, it is esteemed to her, because the long hair has been given to her over against a veil. Okay, so women should be happy right now. You don't have to cover yourself. He thought I was going to make you put veils on, huh? If you have long hair, it says it is your veil. Okay, so you can go to a woman that's covered, right? I mean, if they want to be covered, that's cool. No problem. But if they have long hair, they don't have to be covered with a veil, because it says right here, it says the long hair is a woman's veil. Okay? Now let's go back and look. In verse number 8, it says, for man is not from woman, but woman from man. Verse 9, for man also was not created for the woman, but woman for the man. Okay? So when I was reading, I was like, well, what does that mean? What are you saying? Okay? Remember, the man was already there. Okay? And the woman was created for him. Okay? So the way I see it is, in a sense, I mean, the man wants to take a shower and stuff, but the woman, the beauty is for the woman and not for the man. So the man shouldn't have the beauty of long hair like a woman's, nor less a woman have short hair like a man. Okay? And we're going to go through some other scriptures, and I'll explain to you, and I'll show that exactly what it talks about. Okay? In verse 15, I looked up the word long. Okay? And here's what the word long means. Okay? It says, if a woman has long hair, it be in her esteem. And it's also the same word for if a man has long hair. Okay? And it says, to wear tresses of hair, to have long hair, to let the hair grow long. To wear long hair. It says it's the esteem to a woman and it's dishonor to a man. Okay? The word found in 1 Corinthians 15:11, where the context shows that the covering provided in the long hair of a woman is as a veil, a sign of subjection to authority. Okay? So here's what it's talking about. It's talking about men not having long hair. Okay? It becomes a shame to him because it says here it's unnatural. Okay? And women having hair too short. If a woman has her hair short, she has to have a veil. She's supposed to have a veil. Okay? Now, let's look up some scriptures. Yeah, and she has it on today. I was like, wow. She walked in with that and I was like, wow. I'm sharing a message on it and she had it on. So, well then you say, well, what about the Nazarites? I remember them? Them guys had long hair. Well, let's check and see what went on with them. Let's go to Numbers. Bimidbar. Chapter 6. Okay. Now, all I'm going to do is, I'm just going to give you the information and I'm going to tell you what the interpretation I get of it, okay? And you got to pray because see, here's the thing. With a lot of these things, we don't fully understand the understanding of it, okay? Even with brothers and sisters in Yahuwah, okay? We're still learning about the moons. Is when is it considered a new moon, okay? And we're all, the best we can, trying to cycle and figure it out and figure out what's right. Okay, I've heard this way, I've heard this way, but I don't know, so I'm just praying. I'm waiting for the Father. Okay, so with some of these things that are detailed, it's not worth us splitting up over. Okay, it's not. The way you interpret it, you pray. You ask the Father, show me what's wrong. Okay, you can sit down with somebody. We'll have a conversation. They'll say, you know what? This is what I found. This is what it looks like to me. And this is the way I interpret it. And then they say, well, I interpret it this way. But all in all, okay, I don't want to bust up a relationship over somebody's hair, a couple inches. Okay? So it's up to you. It's up to you to decide through prayer. Okay, Father, what are you saying here? What are you asking of me? What do you want me to do? Okay? How can I honor you? Okay? How do I address this? How do I approach this? How am I supposed to take care of this? Okay? And you ask him. Okay? And it's up to you. Okay? Yes, and that doesn't mean you don't tell people. You can tell them what you found. I said, brother, look what I found. Okay? But you can't force nobody to do nothing. Okay? Hopefully they're going to make the right choice. Okay? But there's sometimes I see on the internet, there's a lot of fights, okay, and crazy over something little when we're still both trying to get there. And I believe he's going to bring the full interpretation of it, whatever little thing it is, the disagreements we have. But it's not worth ending a relationship as far as believers over something like that, okay? We just walk away from the situation. We'll continue to fellowship with them. We'll continue to pray for them. Father, if I'm wrong, show me. This is the way I interpret it. If they're wrong, show them. Let it not separate us. Let it not divide us. And let's go from there, okay? So let's look at Bimidbar, Numbers chapter 6, verse 1. Because these were the Nazarites, and they did have long hair, okay? So it seems like it's contradicting. It's saying men can't have long hair, but what about these Nazarites? Okay? So let's go to chapter 6, verse 1. It says, And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, When a man or a woman separates by making a vow of a Nazarite to be separate to Yahuwah, he separates from wine, strong drink. He drinks neither vinegar of wine, nor vinegar of strong drink. Neither does he drink any grape juice, eat any grapes or raisins. All the days of his separations, he does not eat whatever is made of the grapevine from seed to seed. All the days of the vow of his separation, a razor does not come upon his head. Until the days are complete for which he separates himself to Yahuwah, he is Kodesh. He shall let the locks of the hair on his head grow long. All the days of his separation to Yahuwah, does he not go near a dead body? Does he not make himself unclean for his father, his mother, for his brother or sister when they die? Because his separation to Elohim is on his head. All the days of his separation he is Kodesh to Yahuwah. Okay? So this is specifically speaking of a vow. People making vows to Yahuwah. But when I looked up the word head here, it's talking from the neck up. Okay? So when they made this vow, they couldn't shave nothing. They couldn't shave their beard. They couldn't shave the side of their head. They couldn't shave anything. From the neck up, everything had to grow. Okay? So you imagine that would be like straight wild man, right? That would be like a caveman. Now why would that be? Because there would be no, how do you say it? There would be distinction. That's a man. And that's not a woman. Okay? There would be distinction. Some women, even some men, you can look from behind, right? And you can't tell if they're a man or a woman. Okay? Because it's not natural to be that way. So now we're beginning to understand. Also, Yahuwah says that women aren't supposed to dress like men or men like women. Okay? Even joking around, that's not funny. Okay? It's not a game. Okay? It ain't, I'm going to do a little skit and I'm going to dress up as a woman. You're not supposed to do that. I'm going to do a skit and I'm going to play a man. You're not supposed to do that. Oh, it's just acting. You're not supposed to in any way dress up like a man or a woman. Okay? So here, these people, yes, they did have long hair, but they did go before him with a vow. These were men, but they couldn't shave nothing. They couldn't shave their beard. They couldn't shave the side of their face. Anything from the neck up, they had to let grow. Okay? Until their vow was over. Okay? Let's look at Daniel. See, now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the men with long hair, because that's where we want to see if we got it right. Okay? Daniel chapter 4, verse 28. Okay, now Okay, and all this came upon sovereign Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, now he was judged. He was being punished for something that he was doing. Okay, verse 29. At the end of the 12 months, he was walking about in the palace of the reign of Babel. The sovereign spoke and says, Is not this great Babel, which I myself have built for the house of the reign, by the might of my power and for the esteem of my splendor? And the word was still in the sovereign's mouth when a voice fell from the Shemaim. Sovereign Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is spoken, the reign has been taken away from you. Okay, now he's being judged. And you are driven away from men, and your dwelling is to be with the beasts of the field. Okay, so he's going to be judged. Okay, so now we think about it. Okay, judgment. So he says, you're going to be driven away and you're going to be like a beast of the field. You are given grass to eat like oxen, and 7 seasons shall pass over you until you know that the Most High is ruler in the reign of men. And he gives to whomever he wants. 33. In that hour the word was executed on Nebuchadnezzar, and he was driven from men, and he ate grass like oxen. That's embarrassing, right? All these things are embarrassing. And his body was wet with dew of the Shemaim, till his hair had grown like eagles. Okay, so his hair was long, like almost like wings. It said like the wings of an eagle. Had long hair, and his nails like birds. Okay, so this was an embarrassment. Okay, so once again we're talking about men with long hair. Okay. Now let's go to Ezekiel. We want to make sure there's 2 or 3 spots at least. Ezekiel chapter 16. So that was the judgment. Okay, he was judged, and he said you have long nails. Okay. So I imagine then it's not natural for men to have long nails either then, huh? It'd be like a shame to him. Because what if that was a woman? That would be cool, right? You can have real long nails and long hair. That's not a curse. That's cool, right? Because that's natural. Okay, so he did that to a man, so he was shaming that man. Okay? Let's look at Ezekiel chapter 16. And verse number... Okay, let's start in verse number 1. Okay, now this is a little different. Okay, we just looked at a man in 2 spots, or 1 spot. We looked in Daniel where the man was cursed. Okay, and he says you can go around, you're going to be in the field like a beast. You're going to have long hair, and you're going to have long nails. Okay, and for 7 years. Okay, so that was an embarrassment. That was a shame to a man. Okay, to us at this time we might not think so. I mean, because the different time we live in. Okay, but in that time, that was a shame for that to happen to him. Okay, so when we look here, this is talking about a woman. Okay, Ezekiel chapter 16, verse 1. It says, And the word of Yahuwah came to me, saying, Son of man, make known to Jerusalem her abominations. Okay, so he's speaking of Jerusalem as a woman. Okay. It says, Make known to her her abominations, and say, Thus said the Master Yahuwah to Jerusalem. Okay, now he's calling Jerusalem a woman. He's comparing her to a woman. Okay. Your origin and your birth are from the land of Canaan. Your father was an Amorite, your mother a Hittite. As for your birth, on the day that you were born, your navel cord was not cut, nor were you washed with water for cleansing. So it's saying you were born pretty much just thrown there. All right, like a baby born, the umbilical cord still there, still full of blood. Right, you were just pretty much abandoned, left there is what he's saying. It says you were not rubbed with salt at all, nor wrapped in cloth at all. So pretty much just laying there like had a baby, just laying there naked, just uncut. You know, the umbilical cord not cut, full of blood, not clean, not wrapped, nothing. Just laying there. Okay? Verse 5, no eye felt sorry for you to do any of these for you, to have compassion on you. But you were thrown out in the open field to the loathing of your life on the day you were born. Verse 6, it says, then I passed by you and saw you trampled down in your own blood, and I said to you in your blood, live. And I said to you in your blood, live. I have let you grow like a plant in the field, and you are grown and are great, and you come in the finest ornaments. Breasts were formed, your hair grew, and you were naked and bare. It says, again, I passed by you and looked upon you and saw that your time was a time of love. I spread my skirt over you and covered your nakedness. I swore an oath to you and entered into a covenant with you. And you became mine, declares the Master Yahuwah. Okay? So it says here, it says, and you were grown and great, and you came in the finest ornaments. Breasts were formed, and your hair grew. This was speaking of a female. Okay? So that's a good thing for a female to have long hair. Okay? Let's turn to Hazan, or Revelation. And we just have 2 more scriptures left. I'm going to kind of try to make some sense of all this. Okay? Hopefully it's already coming together. Hazan chapter 9, verse 8. Or Revelation chapter 9, verse 8. Let's read from verse 7. Let's just start in verse 1. Just get the feel of what's going on here. It says, and the 5th messenger sounded, and I saw a star from the Shemaim that had fallen to the earth, and the key to the pit of the deep was given to it. And he opened the pit of the deep, and smoke went up out of the pit like the smoke of a great furnace. And the sun was darkened, also the air, because of the smoke of the pit. Verse 3, out of the smoke of the pit, locusts came upon the earth. And authority was given to them as the scorpions of the earth possess authority. And it was said to them that they should not harm them, the grass of the earth, or anything green, or any tree, but only those men who do not have the seal of Yahuwah upon their foreheads. And it was given to them that they should not kill them, but to torture them for 5 months. And their torture was like the torture of a scorpion when it stings a man. Verse 6, and in those days men shall seek death, and shall not find it. And they shall long to die, but death shall flee from them. And the locusts looked like horses prepared for battle. And on their heads were crowns of gold, and their faces were like the faces of men. And they had hair like women's hair, and their teeth were like teeth of lions. What's women's hair?
Long.
Had to be long. All right, it would have to be long. Okay. So, what this is saying is, when it's saying they had hair like women's hair, then they already must have knew what styles women's hair was supposed to be, right? Or they would have said it had hair like mankind, or it had hair like us, right? It had hair like humans, or had hair like, I don't like to use that word, but had hair like men and women, okay? So they specifically designated like a woman's hair, okay? So then obviously there already must have been what a woman's hair was supposed to be like. Okay? What a man's hair was supposed to be like. Okay? So, I have this other, this interlinear, and it has a translation, and I'm going to read it, because this is what helped me to get an understanding of it. And this is the same thing from Corinthians, 1 Corinthians chapter 11. Okay? And I'm going to start in verse 4. It says, every man praying or prophesying, having anything down over his head, shames his head. And that's a better definition, down over his head. So that's hair. Okay, down over his head. Okay. personally, I consider my hair's a little too long. Okay, so I'm going to cut it. Okay, that's my own personal, that's the way I feel. Okay, I feel it's hanging down, so that's what I'm going to do. Okay, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just reading you what it says, okay? So whatever you determine through your prayer, whatever you determine through speaking to Him, to interpreting the Scripture, what that means to you and how that applies to you, that's specifically up to you, okay? All of my job is to do, and all that we do is when we study with one another, we just present everything, and then it's up to everybody to decide, okay? So here's what it's saying. Having anything hanging down over his head shames his head. Okay? And every woman praying or prophesying with her head uncovered shames her head. So what it means is with short hair. Okay? If you have a short haircut on purpose, then that's like a man's haircut. Okay? You have to be covered. Okay? You should be covered with a veil. Okay? But you don't have to wear no veil if you have long hair. Okay? You don't have to wear it. So it's a choice to make. Now, why would he do this? And I'm beginning to read this, I'm beginning to understand it more. Okay, who was he speaking to? He was speaking to a lot of people who came out of that era of like men being like women, like feminists, curling their hair and doing their body like, you know what I mean, dressing like women. So he's saying is that's not the way it's supposed to be. Okay, let's keep reading and it all makes sense. For if a woman is uncovered, let her be shorn. But if it is shameful for a woman to be shorn, let her be shaved. Let her be covered. So it's pretty much saying if you have short hair, cover yourself. And then when your hair is long, you don't know how long to have to cover yourself. Okay? But it's saying it's a shame for a man to have long hair. It says, for truly a man not to have his head covered, being the glory and the image of Yahuwah. But a woman is the esteem of man. For man is not for the woman, but woman for the man. So now that's making more sense. Okay? I don't have to get pretty for the woman. Okay? Because actually, in the beginning, it says, man needs a helpmate. So Yahuwah gave a woman to a man. Okay? So a woman is okay to get pretty, but there's also some scriptures that talk about certain clothes to wear, and we haven't got to that, but there's a whole other message on modesty or being, having yourself covered in a sense. You don't have to cover yourself with just like a big old blanket and just your eyeballs showing, you know what I mean? But certain tops being too low or shorts being too low and stuff like that. So a woman is supposed to dress with modesty, but what it's saying is a woman was created for a man, beauty for a man, okay? A woman was given to the man. And so, yes, a woman is to have the long hair to have that esteem. But a man, it's not good for a man to do that because a man is not supposed to be pretty like that. Okay, that's like a woman, okay, in a sense. That doesn't mean we don't take a shower, we don't use deodorant. You know what I mean? Some of the guys are like, yeah. All right, we still got to, take care of ourselves. Doesn't mean you act like a slob and leave food in your beard and everything like that. But it's just saying is that's how the things were created, okay? Because of this, woman ought to have authority on her head, okay, because of the messengers. However, man is not apart from woman, nor woman apart from man in Yahuwah. For as the woman is out of the man, so the man is through the woman. But all things are from Elohim. So what this is saying is, it's not down and up. Okay, there's certain things that are set in place. Okay, men are supposed to be the authority. Okay, but then they still love their woman. They don't say, I'm the boss and you listen to me. Right? You can sit down, you take into consideration, you talk about it. Okay, but the end, the decision has to come down to the man. Okay, why is that? It kind of doesn't seem fair, but why is that? Because man is responsible. Okay. So we can sit down and have a conversation and I can listen to you and I don't have to tell you shut up because I'm the man. Okay, we're going to sit down and have a conversation. I'm going to listen to your points. I'm going to take that into consideration. I'm going to take what I have to do into consideration. But in the end, through prayer and through taking the wife's consideration and not just saying I'm the man and what I'm saying is right, I have to make the decision. Because what happens if we lose the home? Whose responsibility is it? The man's, right? The man's. The man is the one. I know it doesn't happen that way, but that's the way it's supposed to happen. Okay, why was the man given authority? Because if something goes wrong, the woman goes to the man and said, do something. Me and your babies just need a place to live. You're the man, right?
That's right.
So if the man's supposed to do that, the man has to have, the woman can't make the choice, because then the woman would say, you got to do something for me. And the man said, well, I was going to, but you made me do it like this, so it didn't work. And right? So if everything's in order and in place, okay, man has a responsibility, but man's decision is not based on because I'm the man and you got to listen to me, right? The man's decision is based on the fact is I'm doing the best thing that I can do for my family, to make sure that they have provision, to make sure that they have food, to make sure that my children are clothed, to make sure that they have the things that they need. Okay, that's the man's job. Okay, so that's why the man was put in authority. Also is because a part of the curse. Okay, a part of the curse of Hawa eating the fruit, it says the man will rule over you. Okay, and I was talking to a brother last night, and it was crazy what he spoke to me. I never thought about it, because we weren't talking about this, but it just came up. We were talking about family, and the brother said, do you know that a woman always was under a man? A woman never left the house. A woman stayed with the father till the husband came, and then she was with the husband. And then if the husband died, she went back to the father. That she was always under a man, right? Not saying under a man like you're lower than me, but man being protection, being authority, okay, watching over her covering. Okay, so it was important for that to happen in that way. So what it's saying here is, okay, we see all these things, okay, men not to have long hair, okay, and like I said, whatever you consider long through prayer, that's your decision. Okay, women the same way. Whatever you consider long through prayer, I mean, I'm sure he's going to tell you, but then it's up to you. Like I said, you can say, oh, my hair is long, and that's long enough. Okay, that's your choice, but all I'm doing is giving you the information. Okay, he says, if your hair is short, whatever you consider short, you need to be veiled. Okay, you need to have a veil. I don't know what that means, if it's all the way around, if it's just around your neck, or just part of your head, I don't know. Okay, that's for you to determine. Okay, but it says a man, it says you're not to have nothing hanging down over your head, because it shames you. Okay, and it says, okay, in verse 14, we already read that. Does not nature teach you that if indeed a man adorns a hair or has long hair, it is in dishonor to him? But if a woman should adorn or have long hair, it is esteemed to her, because her long hair has been given to her instead of a veil. Okay? So that's good to know for you. Okay? For you women, because there's some people that believe in Yahuwah who believe that they have to wear a veil, and I'm not going to judge them on that, because if they want to, they could. Ain't no big deal. You know what I mean? But I don't necessarily think they can force everybody else to. Okay? Because the way that it reads here, and I interpret it, that's basically your long hair becomes your veil. Okay? Now, when all said, okay, is that important? Yeah. Okay? See, we're growing. Okay? So as we're growing, we're going to get closer to Him, and He's going to show us more and more things that He's called us to do. Okay? We're not just going to keep coming here every week and talk about the same sin, and not supposed to be lying, or you're not supposed to, you know what I mean? Because we did that message for like 10 years. Okay? The same thing. Okay? We understand. We understand that we're grafted in. Okay? We understand Yahushua. Okay? We understand that He gives us access to the Father. We understand that we've been adopted into the house. Okay? So now where we're at is what He's asking us to do is He's saying, okay, now you're in the house. Now I'm going to teach you the rules of the house. Okay? The rules of the house. Okay? Now, why is it important for us? Now I could walk up, if I run into somebody from the Middle East, okay? And maybe just a friendship happens out of me, I don't know, in line somewhere or something, or in the same place, or go to the same gym I go to. I don't know, who knows? Okay, and then there's a conversation, and I'm like, oh man, you know that the sons of Aaron wrapped their head like that? And I was reading, I thought maybe that we had to, but it was only specifically for them. And they had to wear all kinds of other stuff with that. In the scriptures, we don't have to do that, okay? Very nicely could I be explaining to them. You know? And I was like, oh, nice veil. Sister, I like your veil. Yeah, I was reading about that because I was wondering if we were supposed to, all women were supposed to wear that. But as I was reading, I come to interpret that it says if you have long hair, that you don't have to wear it. That long hair becomes your veil. Well, that's a cool veil. I like your veil. You know what I mean? You're ministering at the same time. Okay? So now we see there's a lot of partial truths that are pulled, and then it creates a religion out of it. Okay? But when we begin to research, then we can begin to find and put all things together and to be able to understand all things. That scripture stumped me for a long time. I just couldn't understand it. There's a couple more that I'm trying to figure out. I'm like, this don't make sense. This don't make sense. It don't make sense. It don't make sense. But in time, He'll bring it to make sense. Okay? As we begin to study. So what we're trying to do now, hopefully if you're listening, you've been grafted in. If not, email us or something. Get a hold of us if you're on CD or stream. But everybody in this room, we understand that we're grafted in. Okay, we've been adopted into the house. So now our step is, let's learn the rules of the house. Okay, just like you move in with somebody.
That's right.
Okay, you get a roommate, or let's say you move into somebody's house. Okay, you come in. Hey, I'm gonna give you the rules. Okay, this is what goes on. We turn the lights off here. Or this is how you unlock the door. Or this is what goes here. Or this is how we do this. Or this is how the washer works. Or this is how the dishwasher works. Or this is how the microwave works. This is how you use the oven. This is how. All right, so you begin to know the rules of the house. Okay, we want to take the trash out on these days. We don't want it piled up here. We can't leave the trash by the door because the dogs will come and rip it apart and take everything. All right, but in the same sense, it's the same thing with Yahuwah. So now He's trying to teach us the rules of His house. Okay, and as we learn them, it's going to make us unique. It's going to make us set apart. But at the same time, it's going to make sense. Okay, so we can show them in the Word. Right, we can take even their word, even with the wrong names, okay, and we can show them, look at this. But one thing we do have to do is use the concordance, okay, at least that, if not anything else, because there's not enough words in the English language to describe the meaning, the thought of what they're trying to get across, okay. It's so descriptive, the other languages. Hebrew especially is 10 times more than any other language. But even in some of the Greek words, there's 2 or 3 words for the one word that we have in English. Okay, so the reason why I was getting so stuck is because I kept reading it only in English. And it wasn't making sense to me. I'm like, what is he talking about? Is he talking about head coverings? Is he talking about long hair? I don't understand. It's like he's going back and forth. It's like he's mixed up. Is he on some kind of medication or something? You don't know what he's doing? He's like losing me here. So hopefully that helped you and you'll be able to understand and make it a little bit easier for you. And like I said, it's what's long and what's short. I don't know that. You know what I mean? That's up to an individual interpretation, I would think. Okay, and just keep growing. Let's keep allowing the Father to show us and teach us. Okay, the scriptures that don't seem to make sense, understand. Let's keep praying, reading, figuring them out. Because once we got all this figured out, then we're going to be, I know what to do now. Okay, we're still going to be growing in our character, always that. You know, He's still going to be showing us things, but we can get down a lot of the basics, right? And we teach the next generation, and those people who come in, you know, they got a lot easier. Okay, we're struggling. Okay, we're like plowing the ground. It's like hard dirt. You know what I mean? We got to turn things up. Okay, and the people after us are just going to get to come and plant seed and get to eat. My son's it's going to be so easy for him, right? Yes, he's going to have to stand in faith in belief for the name and for the feast and all that stuff. Everybody has to do that. But as far as being confused with what to do and what not to do, man, he's going to have it so much easier than us because we're going through the hard part. Okay? But that's a good thing because we're setting up the next generation and the generation after that and the generation after that, and it's going to be a lot easier for them, and they'll just be able to stand and just walk through it. Okay? They'll understand it a lot quicker than we will. But it's an honor. Consider it an honor.
That's right.
Right? Consider it an honor that He would use you to bring back and restore His instructions, His rules for His house, His feasts, His Sabbaths, His new moons, and all these things that He has for us. Okay? So I just want to close in prayer today and just ask Yahuwah to continue to teach us and bring confirmation, even if you study. If you don't, I don't necessarily need you to agree with me on everything. Go and study for yourself and see what you come up with. Maybe you'll come up with something different. Come and show me. Maybe I missed something. No problem. Okay, I'm more than happy to sit down and show me, because it says we're all the body. We all have different parts and pieces. Okay? So we don't want to get in the habit of just hearing what somebody says and listen to it. Okay? Pray. Ask Him. Read. Look up some scriptures. See what you feel. How do you feel? What do you feel in your spirit? What's going on? Father, what do you think about this? Okay, I read this. But how do you want me to put it into practice in my life? Okay, how do you want me to do that? Okay, and He'll answer you. So Yahuwah, we just thank you for your Shabbat, your day of rest. We thank you for your scriptures, and we thank you for what you have showed us today. Father, we pray that if that's the first time, that you would bring confirmation through somebody else, whether it be through your word, through a dream, a vision, through a pamphlet, through looking up words, whatever it be. If it's the first time, that you would bring confirmation to it, to them. And Father, that you would just continue to help us, teach us to grow and to learn and understand the rules of your house. We understand. We got the first part down. We understand what grafted in. We understand the Mashiach. We understand the blood. We understand all these things. We understand being adopted. But now we need to learn the rules of your house. I know it seems like just little details, but it's what you've asked us to do. So we ask that you would just continue to stir us up. Even let us stumble across scriptures. Maybe even things we haven't even realized. Let us stumble across something that will stir us up and get us excited and passionate to understand what this means. What is this saying to us? We pray for our brothers and sisters in Yahuwah around the world, those that we know personally and those that we haven't even met yet. We ask that you would continue to encourage them, that you would continue to build them up. We pray that we would be able to sit down and study the Word together, whether it be over the internet or through emails or face to face, and we'd be able to learn from one another. That there would be no pride. That we would say, "Oh, I'm not listening to you because I didn't come up with the idea. It wasn't my revelation." So, Father, help us just to work together, that we can work and be one with you, as you are one with your Son. In Yahushua's name, Amen. Hallelujah.